your knowledge, your experience, and on all the information that is going to be very useful for our daily work. And we also have two members of the colleague of the Polish team, Joanna and Anna Busa, because in a near future we are going to perform activities with them also. So we have invited them to see how the activity works. Marvin is going to make the presentation, and the rest of us we will write any doubt or any question we could have in the chat box. And later, after the presentation, the main presentation ends, some of us of the Grupo Mixto team will pass the questions to them for to be answered. So thank you very much again. Thanks to the Spanish colleagues to be here. And well, the stage is for you, Marvin. So
can I maybe say a couple of things?
For sure.
Hi. Sorry, I just wanted to say hello to everybody who doesn't know me. My name is Gillian. There's Marvin who will be giving the presentation, and there's Daniela also online, who is the other half of the EURES Malta team. So thank you for this invite. It's great we work very well with EURES Spain, but it's always great to meet you and to share knowledge and information. The presentation today was prepared. Initially, obviously, this event was meant to be for job seekers as well. So it was prepared with that in mind. But we'll skip some parts that, I don't think you guys need to know about EURES and the EURES portal. I think you maybe have that covered.
Yeah.
But the one thing I wanted to say is, if there are any parts of the presentation that you think, a job seeker would like to know more about this or about that, please give us feedback, because when we eventually do it for the job seekers, it will be good that we can add anything or remove anything that you don't think is useful. So I'll hand over to Marvin now, but yeah, thanks.
Hello, welcome to this presentation. I'm going to present this presentation. Obviously, if you have any questions or if you need to stop me or ask something, feel free as well to stop me as well. But then at the end of the presentation, we have as well time to answer the questions. If anything is not clear, obviously you can ask me again. I hope that I'm being heard well and the presentation can be seen so that we can proceed with the presentation then.
Yes, Marvin, we can hear you and we can see everything. So thanks.
Okay. So, so that we make the presentation a bit more clear, we're going to divide it in some sections, obviously. We're going to have general information about Malta, some facts about the labor market here in Malta, things that a job seeker has to do before moving to Malta, then how to find and apply for work, residency in Malta, taxation and national insurance, then some other information like education, accommodation, cost of living, and finally our contact details so that everything is can be closed up. As you can see, Malta is, compared to other European countries, is quite small. It has a landmass of 316 kilometers squared. The population stands at 440,000, less than 500,000. So it's relatively small as well. Our government is a republic. We have a president as the head of state. In our case, the president is not elected by the people, but it's elected by the parliament. We have two official languages, Maltese and English. Maltese is the national language and is the language that between ourselves we speak. But English is the official language, and normally in businesses and in work, normally we use English. There's the state religion, which is Roman Catholicism, but all denominations and all religions have the freedom to practice their religion and freedom of expression. We joined the European Union on the 1st of May 2004, and then 4 years later, on the 1st of January 2008, we became part of the Eurozone and started adopting the euro as our main currency. Some brief information about the labor market. And as you can see from this slide, Malta, the unemployment rate standing at November 2020 was quite low compared to many other European countries. If we can divide it and break it down, the unemployment rate at November 2020 stood at 4.8%, 4.8 for men and 4.7% for women. On the other hand, the unemployment rates for youths under 25 stood at 11.4%, 11.1% men, and 11.8% female. As you can see, the share of unemployment between males and females is quite similar. So the entry into the labor market is divided between men and women. There's no differences because, as you can see, the unemployment rate are very much similar as well to each other. Some important information about the labor market here in Malta. First of all, here in Malta, there are no national surveys done with regards to shortages and surpluses. The data for shortages comes from vacancies that are advertised with the Public Employment Service, with Jobs Plus, and those that remain unfilled, whilst the data for surpluses comes from the occupations people who are unemployed register for. According to the unfilled vacancies in the Public Employment Service, the five most requested job and skill types between April and June last year were as follow. There were the exam invigilators, which stood at 13.42%. Then there were the clerical jobs at 12.11%. The manual workers, 10.31, cleaners, 4.45, and store distributors, 3.53%. At the end of last June, 26.14% of the persons registering for employment with Jobs Plus sought clerical work, whereas 19.74% sought work in the technical and professional sectors. These are some of the vacancies that we have now available. Some of them, as you can see, are being advertised as well by EURES Spain, while others are on the EURES portal and the Job Plus website. There are the vacancy numbers. Obviously, if any job seeker is interested in applying in any one of these vacancies, software developer, fraud investigator, compliance payment executive, they can send the CVs to the EURES office, and the email address is eures.recruitment.jobsplus@gov.mt. We make the initial shortlisting, and then we pass them on to the employer for obviously for verification, and then if anyone is chosen would be contacted directly by the employer. Obviously these are not the only vacancies that we have, but these are those that come via the EURES Malta system, because there are other vacancies like engineering, architecture, IT, and other professional jobs as well. What does a job seeker an EU national wanting to move to Malta have to do before actually moving to Malta? Obviously, we suggest that the first thing is to make arrangements for temporary accommodation. Obviously, if they can either book a hotel or guest house, or if they have some friends here, they can arrange with their friends, obviously, but at least they have some accommodation in place. They know where they are going to stay during the period they are going to be here in the island. We also normally suggest that if they have already a job, it would be ideal. But obviously, if they do not have a job, they have at least planned interviews with employer and have enough time to meet those employers. Normally, Maltese employers prefer, before they offer a contract, to meet the person face to face. It's important that they bring with them all the necessary and important documents, starting from photographic identification, like ID, driving license, other important certificates like birth certificate or marriage certificate, as well as educational certificates that they are going to use if they want to work in particular professions. We also suggest them that when they make the travel arrangements, they have enough time to meet the employers or eventual time so that they don't have to incur in extra expenses to change the days of their flights. Normally, we as well recommend that at first they come alone and then when they settle in, they bring their family with them. We also tell them to bring the essential social security forms like the U1 and the U2. It's important as well that they have a good knowledge of English, as we have already said. English is the official language, and if they want to integrate into the Maltese life, it's important that they know English. And obviously, most employers as well request English, so it's important that they have a good level of English knowledge. Obviously, I passed the slides that were referring to EURES because obviously all of you know what EURES about on the EURES portal. And now I'm going to focus more on EURES Malta, how we assist our clients, the employers and the job seekers if they eventually wish to come to Malta and find a job here. We're going to show a small video about a Spanish job seeker who eventually used the services of Jobs Plus some time ago and worked here in Malta.
Mara, tinstema ma aħna naraw xejn, u tinstema
Intawx taraw?
fil-baxx. Le, le, le. Forsi għalaq l-istrin tal-presentation.
Now,
No, yes,
Tista'
now.
terġa' tibdeħ mill-bidu, please. Ma
Okay.
nafx tistax tollilu naqra. Sorry for speaking in Maltese. But...
No, no problem. The sound cannot go higher, but we can start again from the beginning.
In 2011, I was going to finish my project. I was working in Madrid, and well, I wanted to continue my career abroad. I I registered my CV, and well, I applied, and I was searching for jobs, because the website give us the option to choose different country where you want to work. So I tried just to choose those countries that I wanted to live. And yes, well, so before going there, so I registered myself in EURES website. So well, my experience was because I was searching on EURES website, and I saw that there was a job fair in Manchester. And well, and I went there. It was in 2011. I remember, I think so, it was November. And I went there with another friend. So that one was my first EURES experience directly. When I was discussing with the European advisor of Malta, it was very interesting, because she told me all the potential that Malta had and has for engineers. So well, for me it was a very interesting opportunity to look this vacancy, and what is my all this potential opportunity that Malta could offer me, and I start to check on the website of the employment service of Malta, and I saw that one of the vacancy matched with my skill. So this is why I started the process with the company that I'm working currently. So all the beginnings are very complicated. You need accommodation. You need somehow you need the transport. You need to open a bank account. You need the social security number, and you need support. You need support. It was easy because my company helped me a lot with all this thing. If the company they didn't know how to do it, they found the person to solve this problem. So step by step, I settled down, and it was very easy. I mean, it was really very easy, because the company already gave me this information and this option. Actually, when I came here, the company already offered me a place, because they already found a place to stay. So, and actually, I'm still living in the first place. So I didn't move to another place. So it was very, and it's really very important that the people that moved from one country to another country find all these not this service, also this information, just to that the adoption time is as short as possible. I remember that I arrived here in April, and there was an information session from EURES Malta about worker rights, taxes, health system. So somehow it was really very good, because it was a good information about the country, about my rights, about workers, so it was really very good. I mean, it was an information session, but also I had the chance to meet more people that they were working here in Malta. So we were also sharing our doubts and our questions. So it was really very important. And also I receive every week I receive information from Malta Employment Service. And when there is a job fair here in Malta, also I receive emails about this job fair as well. And I receive when there is training course or whatever training information, I receive this. So sometimes I was able to apply, and sometimes because of the timetable and the schedule, is not possible to match with my job. But however, I have a weekly email from Malta Employment Service. So in some cases from EURES and in some cases from ETC.
Let's continue with the presentation now. Obviously, in the video we heard about the public employment service. In the video, the Spanish job seeker spoke about ETC, Employment and Training Corporation. From that time, the name has changed and is now Jobs Plus. The name has changed to Jobs Plus, but obviously the services being offered are still the same services. Obviously, assisting job seekers in finding employment and obviously matching them with suitable vacancies, assisting employers with promotion of vacancies and finding suitable clients, providing training courses to improve the person's skill and also their employability, and providing employment schemes to assist both employers and job seekers. It is JobsPlus, the public employment services, obviously, that hosts the Maltese branch of EURES. We are part of JobsPlus, and we promote and assist, obviously, job mobility across Europe and helping, obviously, job seekers to move to Malta. Obviously, if the job seekers are using our services, obviously there is one of the main tools, our website. Obviously, we have the Jobs Plus website, and we normally encourage the job seekers who are still living in their own country to register on the Jobs Plus website and have an online account. And in this way, they are able to receive, first of all, a daily email with all the new vacancies. And obviously, they can as well search their vacancies. They can upload their CV online, and employers can obviously match vacancies for them. And obviously, it gives them the accessibility to start searching for vacancies and even making contacts even before they actually move to Malta. And it's an important tool, obviously. But obviously, there are other tools that a job seeker can use, like local newspapers, who are mainly now online as well, and other private recruitment websites and company websites that we provide the information and links to job seekers who contact us. On the other hand, if they actually move to Malta, obviously then they have the right to register as unemployed, and in that way they get the full service of Jobs Plus and the assistance to find employment. Obviously, normally we suggested that they used to go to the local job centers, but obviously during this particular critical period, registration is done as well through the Jobs Plus website. Obviously, first they need to have their online account, and then if they have their online account and they can prove that they are living here in Malta, they can go to this same website and register as job seekers. And then obviously they would be contacted by an employment advisor who will meet them either online or by phone or meeting and assist them until they find a job. It is important that they adhere to the regulations. If they have a meeting, if they are sent for a particular job vacancy, if they are offered a training, because obviously failure to adhere to these regulations and to these invitations, obviously they might be stricken off the registry of the unemployment. In that case, they would not continue to receive the assistance. In normal circumstances, we suggest that they present as a CV the Europass CV, and that the CV is in English, because normally all the employers would prefer that the CV is in English. Even if there is a particular language requirement associated to that vacancy, for example, if it's a Spanish speaking vacancy, we still recommend that the CV is sent in English to the employer because obviously the employer would prefer an English CV. Obviously, if they are coming to the island, they need to bring with them any certificates or qualification or degrees that they have obtained in other European countries. Obviously, in that case, obviously they can present them, but we recommend them once they arrive here to get what is called the equivalence and recognition of their certificates. Because although they can be used, obviously the fact that they get this document, the equivalence and recognition, first of all, that document is in English, and so they can present it to the employer together with the certificate. And it would make it easier for the Maltese employer to understand what is the certificate or the degree that the job seeker is presenting. The competent authority here in Malta is the National and Further Higher Education Authority, because in the last month this authority changed its name from commission to authority. Obviously, if they are going to bring children with them, obviously they need to get certificates that they need to present, about attendance certificates to present to the schools as well, so that they can continue with their schooling here in Malta as well. Residency. Obviously, as EU nationals, they have the right to live and work here, as long as they are exercising one of the treaty rights. They are either workers, self-employed, or economically self-sufficient people, or they are students. Spouses and children under 21, independent parents or grandparents, but not in the case of students, can accompany the EU EAA national. If the EUA national, after a continuous period of 5 years, can apply for a permanent residence, provided that he or she has not left the country, Malta, for not more than 6 months period. Exceptions can be if there are any important developments. The residence card. Obviously, if they have been living here in Malta and they are exercising one of the treaty rights, they need to apply for the residence document. They can apply for the residence document with the competent authority, which is Identity Malta. Obviously, this would be an important document because obviously it would help them when they are going to open either a bank account, they are going to buy or rent property. They need to register for the government services, purchase utilities like water, electricity, and other utilities. So it's important that they have that card. The taxation system here in Malta. Obviously, like other European countries, we use the VAT system, and for most purchased goods stands at 18%. On the other hand, the income tax for individuals stands between 15 and 35%, depending on the income that they receive, while the corporate tax is set at 35%. Malta adopts what is called the pay-as-you-earn system, so taxes are deducted automatically from the monthly salary, and at the end of the fiscal year, the financial year, there are adjustments so that they do not either overpay or pay less. And obviously, they pay every month. In the case of employers or self-employed people, they have to fill their own tax returns. For more information, job seekers can visit the website of the Commissioner for Revenue and the and Tax Inland Revenue Department section. Obviously, some employers may choose to apply non-tax residence for the first 183 days, And then these rates are the same as above, but the incumbents are slightly different. The website that I mentioned before, it can be seen here. It's www.cfr.gov.mt. National insurance. Obviously, when the job seeker manages to secure a job, he or she need to apply for the social security number. It is important that they have this number because obviously without this number they cannot start working. They cannot apply for the number before they have a work contract or a work promise. Once they have the work contract or the work promise, obviously they can apply with the Department of Social Security to get that number. They need to give it to their employer, and obviously then the employer obviously will deduct from the monthly salary and obviously makes the contributions to the social system of the employee. Normally, as a general rule, there is a 10% deduction, and the employer pays the same amount as the employee that go to the accounts of the employee. So it's the same amount. So obviously there's goes to the same pool. On the other hand, self-employed workers must pay their own NI depending on their net income. For more information about Social Security, they can visit the Social Security website or contact the International Relations Unit of the Department of Social Security. The pension system and benefits in Malta. Generally, the retirement age in Malta stands at 65, both for men and for women. But there are some early retirement clauses. The full rate of the two-thirds pension will be equal to the two-thirds of the pensionable income for a person who from the age of 18 has made a yearly average of 50 weeks of contributions over this particular period as we're going to mention. 30 years for those persons born on and before the 31st of December 1951, 35 years for persons born between 1952 and 61. On the other hand, those that were born after the 1st of January 62 will need to have 40 years, obviously, to apply for the early retirement. Other benefits available can be maternity leave, children's allowance, sickness benefits, and other injury leave, amongst others. As we have mentioned before, it is important that they bring with them the social security certificates like the U1, the U2, or the E104 SO41. Obviously, it's very important that they bring them with them so that they can present them when they need to here in Malta. The healthcare system. First of all, the healthcare system here in Malta is free, is funded by the government from the national insurance that we pay. We have two main hospitals, one in Malta, which is the Mater Dei Hospital, and there is the Gozo General Hospital. Obviously, then there are other, in the localities, there are what they are called the local health centers. Apart from, there are a number of specialized and private units across the country as well. For more information about our healthcare system, anyone can visit the ehig.gov.mt, which is the website, obviously, of the Ministry of Health, where obviously there can be seen, obviously, what are the entitlements, rights, and documents that would be needed to use the health system here in Malta. The working conditions. Obviously, we adhere to the EU regulation of the working limit of 40 hours plus 8 hours overtime per week. And if there are going to be more hours that the employee needs to work, there have to be agreement between all the parties so that this can be done. Obviously, the break entitlement for all employees. They have a break every 6 hours during work, and the rest period of 11 consecutive hours per day plus 24 consecutive hours per week. We have as well what is called the national minimum wage. Normally, an employer cannot give less than this amount by law to employees. This amount is obviously as a guarantee. Um, People who get the minimum wage are normally either people who don't have experience or low skilled. But obviously, if they are skilled, if they have qualifications, the amounts would be higher. But for your reference, the minimum wage stands at, for those employees who are 18 and over, at 181 euro 0.08 euro cents per week. For those aged 17 stands at 174 euros 0.30 euro cents, and for those under 17 at 171 euro 0.46 euro cents. So as you can see, they are divided as well by the ages: 18 and over, 17 and under 17. Leave entitlements. We have the basic leave entitlement, which is of 192 hours. But then, depending on the number of public holidays that fall on a weekend, those are added to our basic leave. So, for example, in 2021, an employee who works for 40 hours is entitled for the basic 192 plus another 24 hours, because there are 3 days that public holidays that fall on a weekend. So in 2021, an employee has 216 hours of paid leave. Obviously, this can vary slightly depending on the public holidays that fall on weekends, but the 192 is always guaranteed. Some information about the cost of living. As you can see, these are some prices, obviously, of the essential things that we buy every day, like starting from fresh bread at 1.13 euros to meats, eggs, milk. So these are roughly the prices that you can see here in Malta. Renting and accommodation. Most rental accommodation here in Malta is privately owned, and properties can be located on estate agent websites and daily newspapers as well. Most rental contracts range from 6 months to a limit of 10 years, or is negotiated with the agent, unless you deal directly with the landlord. The agent service charge is 50% of the first month rent plus VAT. Rent is normally paid in advance, with 1 month's rent paid as a deposit, whilst the rental costs vary based on the area. But as Malta is a small island, there are no much differences, so prices would be around 1,000, 1,500 euros per month. It is important that the job seeker or the person who is moving makes the research before moving, uh, obviously to make the comparison with the salary, not to have to pay rents which are higher than the salary that he or she would be receiving. So it's important that they make the comparison before actually making the move. The education system here in Malta is divided between primary, secondary, post-secondary, and then the university groups. Compulsory schooling is between the age of 5 and 16. We have three types of school systems. We have the those that are state schools, state operated, and these schools are free of charge. Then there are the private schools, either the Catholic schools, which are as well free of charge, and the independent free schools. Obviously, in this case, they are with a charge. In further education, there are a number of institutions that offer diplomas and degrees up to postgraduate level as well. In recent years, Malta has become a hub for tuition for English language for foreign students. A lot of youths normally come, especially during summer, but during the year, to learn English in the specialized English language schools. The public transport, obviously, being a small country, obviously, our only means of public transport are the buses. We don't have trains or trams. We only have buses. Nowadays, we have a modern fleet of buses. Those classical buses that obviously were used to being advertised are now only used by private company for touristic purposes. Routes normally operate between 5 in the morning and 11 in the evening, and there is the night service as well. There are the special fares as well for students, elderly, and the rates are divided either hourly, weekly, or monthly. And we suggest that people obviously have what is called the bus card, because if they have the bus card, they are entitled for these reductions as well. So it's important that they visit the website of the Malta Public Transport and get their own, we call it Tallinja card, bus card, so that they can benefit from the rates being offered to residents as well. The Maltese culture, obviously, being as well a Mediterranean country, obviously we have many things that are similar. Friendly people, relaxed pace of life. We obviously normally go out during summers, not last summer, but obviously if things get back to normal, hopefully we get our summers back as well, where you can participate in activities. This was not always the case, obviously, because in the past was not so peaceful as well, because the island was invaded and obviously was conquered on numerous occasions. But obviously, these different cultures and what happened in history made Malta what it is today. Yet, many aspects of the native Maltese culture did survive, such as our cuisine, folklore, and obviously our religious devotion, which gave birth to our traditional and famous festas with fireworks, processions, statues being carried in the streets. As well, for this summer, had to leave place because of the circumstances, and we're waiting for the next summer. Hopefully, we can resume our normal way of life. The Maltese language, as although we said that English is the official language, we have our own languages, which is the Maltese language, and this obviously has left its mark in our language, in our history. The Maltese language is a mixture of, first of all, it has a Semitic structure and grammar, but then obviously it has a lexicon, a vocabulary coming from English, French, Italian, and showing the influences of the different cultures that invaded our country. And that is what makes our Maltese language quite unique. Finally, we have our contact details. Obviously, that you are more than welcome to give them to your clients, to your job seekers, or to your employers. And obviously, you can share them, and they can contact us if they have any questions or queries, or they are interested in moving to Malta. Thank you, and for having the patience to listen for my presentation.
Thank you, Marvin. It has been very, very interesting. And there has been some questions, but Gillian has kindly answered already some questions about the uh, exam invigilator job, which is it was not known by us. Here in Spain, it's different, this task. And other questions regarding the health card and the national insurance number. So this is the moment for the colleagues to make questions, just in case we have doubts or whatever. Don't be shy.
Yes, yes. I would like to ask about the number of job offers we have in the past related to bus drivers. I never understood why you had so many offers for these professionals. Why? Because we have an enormous number of drivers needed. You needed a lot of drivers. So your island is so small that I never understood why this.
I don't know, maybe I can answer this one. Basically, there was a massive, before the way the bus system used to work is somebody owned the bus and they owned the license to drive it. And then some years back, this was changed and it became more of a company type thing. So it wasn't so much you had a bus and you had your route and you did that route every day. But when initially Arriva came, I believe, they took over. They added a lot more routes. They had a lot more drivers as backup, because again, if you had a bus and you had this route and if you woke up sick today, then there was no kind of backup. It was very old-fashioned, our bus system before. So in essence, it was a whole revamp of how the bus system worked, how frequent the voyages were, how before, all journeys used to all start from a village or a town and go to Valletta. So if you needed to go anywhere else, that wasn't on the way, you would have to go to Valletta and then get another bus to go somewhere else. When Arriva came in, they made a lot of other journeys from, kind of maybe more major town to another major town, so to speak. So they created a lot more bus routes. So this is why there was such a massive requirement for bus drivers for a long time. Yes.
Thank you very much.
More questions? No? Well,
Nacho,
how many Spaniards are working just now in Malta?
do you have this figure? How many Spanish people, how many Spaniards are they living there in Malta?
Do you know?
Julia is going to get some information, give it to you as well, because she has the data as well.
Okay. Okay.
And she's in the office.
It's a good idea.
I have a question also. What is the balance between salaries and cost of living in Malta? Because it looks like that cost of living is not so cheap as someone can imagine, and salaries are not very high normally in at least the salaries appearing at the vacancies. How people manage with it?
Obviously, the cost of living is not that cheap, but normally, the average wage and what they are actually receive and the cost of living, normally they can balance. Obviously, that's why we made an stress on the fact that especially when they are going to uh, make the move, they check what the salary is going to be, and especially the accommodation, because that's the worst thing, but because that is the most expensive, and obviously they need to make the necessary arrangements. The minimum wages, as I have told you before, are not normally the wages that they receive, because normally those are for very low skilled or unexperienced, and the average wage is still higher. but still it is important that they make these calculations before they can actually make the move.
Yeah, I think if you hear hammering, somebody's hammering outside my door, perfect timing.
Don't worry.
The thing is, yes, in Malta, I must admit, the one thing that is higher comparatively is accommodation, because we're a small island, space is extremely limited. There's a lot of us in a small space. So rents are quite high. I think the pandemic has served in a way to kind of regulate prices a bit, because obviously things have slowed down a little bit. But I mean, for a long time, there was a lot of foreign nationals who would come to work here who generally tend to share an apartment, because it was cheaper to split an apartment between two people. But I think in general, as Marvin said, unless you're coming to do a minimum wage job, then you're probably going to struggle a bit. But I think that the most important thing is that people, yes, do their homework, because if you come here thinking that things are going to be the same as they are in another country, or not realizing, or you see the salary and you think, well, the accommodation must be cheap then because the salary is maybe not comparatively so high, then they might be in for a rude awakening. So
regarding this, Eva from Zaragoza has made a question about if it is easy to get a long-term accommodation contract.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I think again now things have kind of settled themselves a bit more. So I think now it's a bit better as well. I think this year, basically the whole rental sector has been regulated now. So before there was no kind of law that dictated the rental sector, which was a bit of a problem. There was a lot of landlords taking advantage. There was a lot of tenants who would take advantage as well. So now kind of all rental agreements have to be registered. The deposit has to be lodged with a specific entity. So, it's a lot more regulated. So I think now we're looking at a system where even for a foreign national coming in, it's a lot easier to understand maybe how things work, and it's a lot more transparent. Let's put it that way.
Rosario from Murcia asked before, just when you went, asked if you have the approximate number of Spanish people living in Malta.
No, I don't. I'm sorry, I don't have it to hand.
No,
I would easily ask,
matter.
but I don't have it to hand. But I know what I kind of tend to look at on a monthly basis is I look at the number. So all employment in Malta has to be registered with the Public Employment Service. We have a system, we have a form whereby anyone who works in Malta needs to be registered. So as a rule, obviously there's always some employment that isn't registered, but as a rule, most of it is. And every month I look at the new EU nationals that come here for the first time. So, how many people have taken up a job in Malta for the first time. And Spanish people are always, if not, before it always used to be British nationals was first or second, and Italians, and then Spaniards are there. So either kind of third or fourth place. So it's quite a popular destination, I think, with Spanish nationals, comparatively.
There's a lot of thank yous in the chat box.
One thing I also wanted to ask, I'm taking a note of these questions because obviously they kind of, if people are asking, it means, but is there any information that you feel we should add if we're speaking to if we're presenting this to job seekers? Is there anything that you would think, because sometimes I think when you live in a country and you know how things work in your country, I don't know, maybe even salaries, I was thinking, because we obviously present gross salaries. So when somebody says your salary will be 30,000 a year, that's gross without deducting tax and without deducting national insurance. So a person will not obviously be receiving 30,000 euros. They will be receiving less. And maybe that is not always clear because maybe other countries work different. So I don't know if there's anything that you can think of that you think actually a bit more information on this or that would be useful. Please let us know.
Colleagues, ideas for this. This is a good opportunity for us to ask about information. If something from the job seeker point of view could be added.
Could be interesting to know if there are some restriction during the pandemic to access to move to Malta.
No, essentially no. I mean, obviously, if there are any restrictions in terms of airports being closed or you know, but other than that, in terms of the EU generally, there's, apart from the fact that we had obviously airports closed for 3 months at the beginning of the pandemic, now I think most people just need to produce a negative test. And there's also a lot of testing being done at the airport. But other than that, as far as I'm aware, there's no restrictions whatsoever.
Joanna and Anna from Poland, please feel free to ask if you have something to.
Just a
Okay,
question.
thanks.
Just a question. Is there any kind of mentoring for people who start to work, for people from abroad, from Malta, that start in a company? Is there any kind of mentoring?
Not officially or not structured. I mean, obviously some companies will be more organized or better than others in terms of, you know, I mean, in the video Diego was talking about, Diego, obviously his company were very supportive in terms of providing information, and they were in very close cooperation with EURES, you know, asking us questions and relaying it. Not all employers are the same. Some employers, also bigger employers as well, who have foreign nationals, will also kind of have a mentoring, a buddy system. So, you know, if you join the company, they will put you in touch with another foreign national who's in the company that can maybe give you a bit more kind of practical advice about how to go about things. But it really depends where you work for, or who you work for, rather.
One more question about languages. When a child goes to school, they learn in English or Maltese and English, or I don't know how it goes.
I think it's a bit of a mix. I believe that there is a, when foreign national children join the schooling system, there's a specific school for the first year that all foreign nationals they're put in a class so that they start learning even some Maltese. But I think in general, I mean, obviously apart from the Maltese lesson, which is generally done in Maltese, I think anyways a lot of teaching is now done in English, and there's a relevant percentage of foreign students in classes now, so it's catered for. I don't know if Marvin has anything additional, because maybe you know more about this, but as far as I'm aware, that's the situation.
Normally, mainly the language used is English, because most of the textbooks are as well in English in many subjects. So, and if they have a foreign student, the teacher tend to change to English as well, even in the communication with the students. So obviously, and the fact that they know that there have a lot of foreigners, not only EU, but obviously the teacher try to make it easier for all the group to integrate into the lesson.
The question, hi, about the language skills. I don't know, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hi. We haven't seen yet. My name is Joanna. I'm EURES advisor from Poland. And first of all, thank you that I can hear all of that, because we're starting the project with Spain. And for us, it's very important to know how it should look or how it should be practiced. But I have only one question about language skills, because you said that there's English and Maltese. So if the English language is your second language, so there's not requirements for learning Maltese language for job seekers, I mean.
No. I mean, look, in Malta, if you speak English, you'll get along fine. I mean, everyone speaks English here. So it's really not an issue. Of course, like anywhere else. I mean, if you, I think the problem I have as well with, and I think we're also answering Eva's question here, because Eva typed a question in the chat. I think we, for example, advertise a lot of jobs for example, Spanish speakers or etc. etc. And just because in your job you speak Spanish, or you know, I mean, it doesn't mean that when you go out there and you go shopping and that you don't need to speak English. And I think that's the mistake that sometimes is made a bit, because, you know, yes, for your job you don't need to perhaps speak English, but then when you go out there in the community, you obviously need it. And I suppose in a way it's the same with Maltese. I mean, everyone will speak English, but if a foreign national then makes the effort to learn a bit of the language, it always makes a difference. It always makes a difference, you know, for us, that somebody is able to say a few phrases in Maltese, for example, but there's no requirement, no.
At the beginning, okay. Thank you.
Some front-facing jobs, especially, for example, I don't know if they're with certain entities or with certain companies, perhaps, they would want people that speak both Maltese and English, just because you're dealing with the public. I mean, it might be that, for example, the older generation, they speak English or they understand English, but they're not comfortable speaking it, for example. But certainly, I know I've asked in shops, for example, yeah, I mean, if you just speak English, that's absolutely fine.
Thank you.
Well, Eva Tourinho, I don't know if the question you made is answered now. And Eva Octavio asks about the professional culture in Malta, if it's very formal or if it is more in a Mediterranean way.
It's funny because I think we're Mediterranean, but then as well, don't forget that we were under the British for a long time.
Okay.
Like, you know, the last
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of.
yeah.
So I think there are some elements of that. We're a funny mix of sometimes very formal and then sometimes very informal. But I think, you know, as well, in terms of, I don't know, for example, how to manage a job interview. I'm not sure what Eva means by that, how to manage, maybe how to present yourself or whatever. But for example, how to present yourself, ideally you are formal. You know, ideally you're dressed in a suit when you go for an interview, and you're, you know, this is kind of what employers like to see, at least as a first, at least kind of as a first impression. And then if the interview tone is a bit more informal, then fine. But I think the starting point should be that. Can the candidate
Yes,
ask the
about job interviews, about selection interviews, if there is if candidates can ask questions to the employer, or if it doesn't make a sense.
Again, it depends, because I don't know, if you're interviewing for a public entity, for example, it's very much like you are asked the questions and you know, and you answer the questions and that's it. Private companies are different, you know, and they're a bit more multinational, they're a bit more so I suppose it really kind of, you really need to take your cue from how the interview is being handled. Sometimes they will ask you if you have any questions. Sometimes they won't even bother to ask you if you have any questions. So clearly, but I think it depends. I mean, I think with private bigger companies now, it's becoming more informal or more open, if that makes sense.
Okay. Jesus asks about Italian language, if it is useful there.
It's funny. So for example, kind of my generation and above, when we were growing up, we only had Italian TV, apart from Maltese TV, but it wasn't great. So most of us watched Italian TV. And this is why a lot of people kind of learned to speak Italian, just because that's what we watched. But then kind of younger generations, you know, now there's a lot more British and American shows, so they don't tend to speak Italian as much. So no, it's not an official language, but this is kind of why a larger percentage of the population speak and understand Italian, because of this reason. But that's changing a bit. So I think as the younger ones grow older, that percentage will start to shift. Is it useful? I mean, it's not useful, if that makes sense. There are many Italian nationals in Malta. There are many, for example, Italian restaurants in Malta. There are many even Italian companies in Malta. So knowing Italian could be an asset in some jobs rather than not knowing it. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, we have overpassed the time expectation, so I don't know if there are some more questions or not. We are very happy to have you here, and all the information has been very, very, very interesting and very useful. So if there is no more questions, let's finish. Thank you very much. I don't know if other colleagues of the Grupo Mixto team want to add something. Some colleagues have gone already because they had
something else
responsibilities. So thank you, EURES Malta. Thank you, EURES Poland, for joining us. And well, if someone has more questions to ask, we have the email, and we will answer it later.
Eva saying, see you in Malta. Yeah, I really, really hope that I get to meet some of you soon. We would be more than happy to see you in Malta or in Spain. Yes, I think everyone needs to get on a plane right now.
we want to start again to the presentiality, to the presential activity. You know, the
yes,
on-site activity.
Yes. I think all of us are really missing that because it was such a big part of our jobs, and now it's gone. But hey, thank you for the invite.
Thank you very much.
If you have any questions, of course, please just ask us, and we'll be happy to set a date and deliver the presentation to job seekers as and when you think the time is right. But it's really great working with you.
Thank you.
Have a lovely day, everybody.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So
bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye. Grupo Mixto, nos quedamos un poquito.
De acuerdo. Bye, bye.
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 Muchas gracias a todos.
Thank you. Now